All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
Welcome back to another episode of Reignite Resilience. Happy New Year for us. This is our first time back, but you guys have been listening to us for a couple of weeks yet. So, hey, Pam, how are you?
Well, I am fantastic, 2026. And I felt like I haven't seen you in forever being on this little hiatus from recording, and I kind of missed it. And I saw it on my calendar this morning and I kind of got a little excited. So yeah, so glad to be here. I'm a routine girl.
I feel like we have definitely hit the ground running in 2026. And I was on a little bit of a hiatus. I took some time to, unplug and get away. And I typically like to take some time to get away, and just got back from Central America not even a week ago yet. So that's always fun, like getting back into the swing of things after being gone for almost a month. But it's nice to be back. I'm happy to get back in the saddle, get some things done, and get to visit with some special guests like we have today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited. And so, as Natalie said, we've got a guest with us today because, that's what we love to do, is start out with a guest for the new year. So today's guest is Rob Tracy, a high performance coach, speaker, and creator of the Prime Performance Process, a system that helps driven entrepreneurs and leaders break through stagnation and build sustainable momentum in both life and business. Welcome, Rob. It is so great to have you with us today. And I'm going to kind of hand it over to you and kind of share your story about getting into the coaching and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I'm super excited to be the first episode of the new year. So it's really fun. I'm excited to be here. And for myself, so what I do really is running a small personal growth strategy firm now. And how I got here was kind of like a crazy story. So my background is actually in strength and conditioning. So I grew up playing lots of different sports, and the sports realm kind of became like my second family, being able to connect with everybody on the team, coaches, players, and even other teams too, and like other players and other teams. It became my world. And then as I kind of progressed through the life of sports, getting into college football and such, and the easiest place for me to stay connected with everybody was in the weight room. So I got my master's in exercise science. I got a concentration in performance enhancement, and that really laid the groundwork for coaching. Because are you guys familiar with strength and conditioning as an industry or a career by any chance?
As an industry, not a career.
Not as a career.
Yeah. So typically when you go into like strength and conditioning, you go one of two routes. You either try to go collegiate and then work with higher colleges, bigger universities, and then hopefully get a job with the professionals one day. Or you go a little bit more into the private sector, which is kind of that entrepreneurial world. And that's the route that I took. And to me, that was super exciting because I got to control my schedule. I get to learn sales. I got to learn these entrepreneurial skills. And at the same time, nobody told me that I couldn't work. So I grinded as hard as I could, and I quickly scaled my book of business up to this point where I was working 15, 16, sometimes 17-hour days, 7 days a week for about 3 years straight.
Oh, wow.
And on paper, I was making plenty of money, and I referred to this as robot mode because I was efficient at getting new clients, training clients, and then just scaling my business up. But at the same time, the problem falls when you get stuck in robot mode and you fail to switch back into human mode. And when you're in robot mode for too long, you lose those human qualities. Most of all is that awareness and your emotions, and you lose a lot of things like friends, health, all these things start falling apart. Like I'm supposed to be the strength and conditioning coach, but I was overweight, weaker than ever because I was sacrificing my training time for other clients' times.
Mhm.
And then the relationship that I was in fell apart, and a lot of friends stopped calling me for different things. And one of the most important relationships that I lost was my father. He got sick with pancreatic cancer. And instead of spending time with him, I kept working. And I regret not spending that time with him. And after he had passed, normally we would think that maybe this is a wake up call, maybe to slow down with working, but I just doubled down and I continued to work for another year or so before I realized like, hey, this isn't really what I want to be doing. I have all this knowledge and skills of performance enhancement, but I don't want to teach squats and deadlifts for my whole life. And I don't want to be doing this. So I pivoted into personal growth strategy. And that's where I'm at now. I'm trying to help other craftsmen or skilled technicians for what they do who make that shift into kind of ownership with their life. So they move from working with somebody else into starting their own business. And I help them prevent the burnout phase that I went through of this robot mode so that they can still grow their business, grow themselves personally, and still enjoy life.
So, Rob, how long did it take you? Because I know when you get into that robot mode, that becomes kind of your normal. And when we try to change that and slow down a little bit and do things a little bit differently, our body likes to go back to the robot mode because it's we know it's comfortable. It's safe.
Yep.
So how did you make that transition where you broke that so that you could get on the other side of it?
Yeah, it took a while to kind of piece this together. And part of it was the uncertainty. You said that it's so safe to kind of revert back into that robot mode, which it's very true because it's predictable, right? So we can predict what's going to happen. And when you make the shift and you're pivoting your identity, a lot of things change, and it's scary because you're not really sure what's going to happen or how it's going to take and how other people are going to view it, how you're going to view it. And it was a long process, and it took me a while to realize like, hey, I'm not abandoning ship on who I used to be. I'm evolving it. So the coaching and the skills and everything that I learned has now developed a little bit further. Instead of just squats, bench press, and sport like speed training, now it's a lot of like awareness, intentionality, developing influence, and creating opportunities for shared success. And that kind of evolved within. It took that time. Like it didn't happen overnight, but it was piece by piece and a little bit of reflection after a little bit of reflection, tinkering, pivoting here, change a little bit this, and maybe I should try that, connecting with new people, networking, and trying to grow as much as I can as an individual so then I can share that with a lot of my clients and friends and family as well.
Okay. So you're trying to catch them before they get into that kind of robot mode. Okay. Nice.
Rob, as you started to uncover this for yourself, was there something that you gravitated towards naturally that just felt, okay, this seems like a logical and doable next step that I can incorporate for myself so I can continue to grow? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, I think it was starting or the interest in public speaking. As it kind of fell into my lap with one of my friends who started just kind of getting people together to practice talking and sharing information. And that journey really kind of clicked a lot of other things for me. Being a leader for my whole life in all these different sports teams, I was always commanding the room or the field or leading practices and teaching other things. And so for me to step in front of an audience or a crowd to share some of my experiences and insights to hopefully help them not make the same mistakes that I made, but also optimize or create better opportunities for themselves, flowed directly with what I was doing. And then that partnership of all this education and experience that I've had from coaching connected with the public speaking just made it seem like this was the perfect fit for me. And it took a little bit of time, but once it kind of fell into place, it was like, ooh, this feels good kind of thing.
I love
Absolutely. Well, and you had all of the pieces to it, right? We talk about the importance of having community and having accountability. So you put yourself in a space where you were getting the at-bats and the practice at it, just so you can continue to like master that craft.
Yeah, exactly. And like anything, it takes time and practice. And going through a lot of different events and connecting with people. Like every single day, you have an opportunity. Everybody does, as coaching or influencing, and whether you're influencing yourself or others around you in a team setting or whatever. But you got to put those reps in and day out. And it really starts with that awareness, right? So that's how you can make better decisions, and that's how you can show up a little bit better and perform better.
Yeah.
I love it. I'd love to go back to, so you lost your father, which I'm sorry for that, but that didn't stop you from, it wasn't a pattern interrupt for the robot mode that you were in. You just actually doubled down a little bit more. When was it, or what was the catalyst that was like, oh, this has to change now. Like there's no going back.
Yeah, so it was about a year to a year and a half after my dad had passed. And so even when he was sick, I hadn't even mentioned anything to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm up in Connecticut and my dad was living down in Philly. And when he had moved into hospice, I would drive down to Philly every day after work around like 8 or 9 p.m., drive 3 to 3.5 hours down there just to be by his bedside, and then just drive right back in the morning and then work all day, praying that he wouldn't pass away while I was at work, and then drive back down. So I did that for about a week and I didn't tell anybody. And I was running on sunflower seeds and energy drinks. And then as soon as he did pass, I took that day off, and I took the following Saturday off for the funeral, but hadn't mentioned anything to anybody. And that became kind of like a new escape for me, because then I could disassociate myself and the life that I had been created because I was so busy working. And then I kept working. And eventually I got to a point where everybody, or not everybody, but majority of my clients had gone away. It was like a holiday weekend. And I was sitting in my apartment on a Friday night, and I'm like frantically swiping through my phone like I'm on a bad dating app or something, like who's available to train, and nobody was around. So I was like, well, what do I do now on a Friday night? What do normal people do? And then I started to remember about the times when I would hang out with friends, or I'd go visit my dad, or going out, connecting and having fun, and realizing that like, hey, I haven't done any of this in forever. And then I tried reaching out to a bunch of people to see like, hey, what's going on this weekend? Is anybody around? And everybody else had plans. And I just kind of sat by myself, and I was like, this isn't who I want to be. Like growing up sports, being around everybody, like working together, like nobody was around. So although I was surrounded by people all day with my clients, I was more isolated than ever. And I was lonely, and I was again out of shape. And I was that Saturday really was an opportunity for me to look in the mirror. And in that reflection, I was like, I don't like who I'm becoming. Something needs to change, but I wasn't sure what. So that's where that process began. It was like, okay, how do I tone down how much I'm working here to give myself some space to kind of start to figure out, at least to think about what it is, how I want to change, or what I want to grow into. And then that little bit of reflection allowed for the snowball effect to kind of take place. And eventually, with more and more reflecting and journaling and being exposed to different things that I could be doing, I built up this idea of what it is I'm doing now, and this strategy about helping others develop themselves so that they can handle a lot of the things that entrepreneurship throws at you.
Yeah. Wow.
It's so interesting. Like I know that you talk about specifically your industry, but I see it across the board. It's what you talk about is not industry specific, right? We see entrepreneurs and employees and leaders and owners of companies that get into the same space, and you kind of dismiss it or you justify it, right? Like if you're in a leadership role, it's they have the saying that it's lonely when you get to the top, and that's not necessarily the case unless that's the reality that you create for yourself. Or there's like the journey of entrepreneurship and how that can be a lonely journey because you're truly like in the trenches on your own. But oftentimes I think there's an opportunity for those individuals in those spaces to sit and reflect like you did. Like, is this truly a result of the career or the path that I've chosen as a profession? Or have I made choices along the way that have just slowly put me on this island by myself where I don't have the community? I'm not living authentically. I'm not doing the things that I enjoy and I love at one time that I did. And I'm truly not taking care of myself, even though on paper it looks like success. But the reality is it's not.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't feel like it.
No, and I think where this burnout kind of comes into play, I think it really starts to, it doesn't come from not being able to handle the workload. I think it comes from not
Mhm.
being aligned, or almost getting like the goals and things that you're chasing after burn you out when they're not necessarily aligned with what you're trying to do. And I think we get caught up in, we get all these to-do lists and things that we're supposed to chase after, and these milestones that we're told we got to hit. And we don't spend time to sit and think and like, hey, do these milestones, are they a reflection of who I want to become, or are they just
Mhm.
bestowed upon me because my boss or senior, somebody else told me I had to do this? And I think that's where the burnout becomes an issue, because we start trying to go faster and faster and faster, and then we're chasing our tails almostly, and we don't really evolve into that new version of ourselves or who we want to actually become.
I love what you said about we're chasing what somebody else told us we need to chase.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that is I think that right there is huge, because I think a lot of people are going through the motions, but they have no idea what it is that what they even want. They want, not what they were told they have to do or what society told them they have to do. And so how do you help people? Because you work with entrepreneurs, how do you help them figure out what it is that you truly want at your core? And how do we make sure that that's in alignment with what the activities are that you're doing?
Yeah. So whenever I'm working with somebody, I bring them back to this time period where after that burnout, after robot mode, I was so disconnected, and I decided I wanted to try something. I wanted to revisit something that I used to love. And that was playing rugby again.
Mm.
So I signed up for rugby. I'm super excited. I'm bragging to the guys because I'm like, oh, yeah, I was captain. We won a state championship or a league, and then we went on to nationals. And in college Rob was the man. I was strong, I was fast, I was in command, everything was awesome. And it took about like 5 minutes for the first match for me to realize that I wasn't college Rob anymore. I was
Yeah.
like, oh geez. Present day Rob needed ibuprofen just to show up to practice. So I
Yeah,
was like, geez.
exactly.
And
As you said that, I was like, that is probably a sport that you really don't want to take a break
No,
from and just come back and say, let's
I'm
let's
just going to
do
do
more.
that.
but it's funny because that first match, I was like so out of place, and I was frustrated. My passes were sloppy, my tackles were terrible, and I was beating myself up. And in my head, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, I'm the same person. I'm probably in better shape now than I was when I was in burnout mode and everything. And I'm like, what is going on? And to be honest, I was so embarrassed, and I was like, oh man, this is not me. This is not who I am. And then I realized this thing that transcends rugby and goes into entrepreneurship, and why it relates to a lot of my clients is we have this idea of success, and we're trying to get back to that version of ourselves instead of stepping into who we need to be next.
Yeah.
And that is a powerful thing. And I go through this exercise with my clients about raising your flag. Like at the top of the mountain, that this new mountain that you're climbing, there's a flag planted at the top. So how do you raise your flag? And the flag is an acronym that I run through this exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And the first letter F is foundational values. So I spend some time to kind of list out the values that my clients or friends or whoever is going through the exercise currently have, and then viewing themselves 5 to 10 years down the road and saying, what kind of values does that successful version of yourself have? Do they change from what you currently have? And if so, what is the difference there? So once we list those out, then we dive into the next letter, which is L, and that's lifestyle alignment. So is the life that you're currently living, is it aligned with that future version of yourself? If not, what needs to change? Like for myself, it was working 15, 16, 17-hour days, but yet I want to be connected with friends and I want to be working together with other things. And I was spending too much time for other people that I wasn't allowing myself to live the life that I wanted to grow and live. So you got to figure that part out, and then move on to A, which is the aspirations. And this is where we're going back to like, are the goals that we're set for ourselves for 2026, are they our goals, or is it just somebody else telling us that this is what we need to follow?
Yeah.
And what is those things leading to? Like, what is those goals going to help us become down the road? And then finally, the last letter is G, which is growth opportunities. So what are the skills or the lessons or things that we've learned, or are we working towards to become a better version of ourselves? So as we mentioned earlier, how I kind of got into public speaking, that became a growth opportunity for me to kind of practice storytelling, getting better at relating points to different stories and different ways of delivery and things like that. So that's something that I'm constantly trying to get better at on a day-to-day basis so that I can deliver my message and points a lot clearer and more concisely. And then once you have all that kind of written out and looking nice and pretty on a condensed piece of paper, then you can make better decisions and align yourself with what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And when you're aligned with your values, you expel less energy because you're in your flow state. You're doing the stuff that you're like, I love this. When you're misaligned with your values, then that's where you feel that friction. It drains you. And yeah, you end up just kind of you're the robot mode, I would say.
I think I was so close to being aligned when I was in strength and conditioning that it was like, oh, there's a little bit of friction and it's moving pretty well, but it's not smooth enough. And I think that's why it allowed me to grind for so long, because I was motivated and I thought that that's exactly what I wanted to. But once I kind of made a little bit of a pivot, it's like, oh, wow, now I've got endless energy. I'm moving smooth. My decisions, I know what I'm aligned with, and it just flows a lot better. Like you said, flow state.
Yeah. Well, and I think you alluded to it. It's the different seasons of our life. Like back when you played rugby in college, you were in a different season than you were when you went back to try to play it and now decide you need to, or realize you need ibuprofen to even step on the field. And so it's and being okay with that, I think, is a big thing too, is like, what season are you in your life? And does that align with what it is that you want right now and the values that you have? Because your values change based on the season of your life.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah. Wow.
I think I love the acronym of FLAG. And it's like, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking through just like my own, Pam and I talk a lot about values when we're working with different individuals and companies and organizations. And when we look at like those foundational values, not just like your values today, but the values that future version of you will hold to be true. And it's interesting because I think about the values that I have today versus the future version of me, that person that I'm aspiring to be and working towards. And it seems like they're just like, of course, those would be values. Like that's not what those ideal values at that time, like at that season of life would be, because that would be a natural place of living for me, right? With the values that I currently hold to be true. The other piece though, is that without all four of the key areas that you mentioned in FLAG, without those foundational values that you talk about, and then the aligned goals, because you can live in alignment with your values and then have those arbitrary goals that are set, right? Like, well, yeah, that's my goal because it's the next thing to do. Double your production, double your income, whatever it might be, right? Like it's the next logical thing to do. Totally living in alignment with your values, but not living in alignment with like the true goals that you want to have that honor and fulfill you and take you to that next level. Plus the growth piece. I think the combination of FLAG is very powerful if you give yourself that space to truly sit down and process what that looks like for you.
Yeah. A lot of people always talk about Simon Sinek and how you recommend everyone to start with why. And that's really important. But one of my mentors once told me, it's like, why is really great. But if you can start with who, it makes it a little bit more powerful. So if you think about yourself in the future, that's who you should be kind of basing a lot of these other things off of. And then that'll lead to the why you should be doing certain things.
That's awesome. Rob, of the four, when you start working with a client, what's the one that you have the most resistance with, or that I should say your clients have the most resistance to?
I wouldn't say too much resistance, but I think the one that's a little more challenging would be the foundational values, because you hear values and you're like, oh, okay, great. Core values like honesty and trust and all these other things. And people just kind of list them, but they don't really spend time to kind of think or reflect on, okay, these are the list of values that I kind of hold true to myself. But do I actually follow those, or do I just say those because that's what I think they should be?
Yeah.
So that's a hard part, because that's that's taking the medicine, and you have to like swallow it, and you have to like, okay, I say that I want connection and community, but I'm not going out. I'm not connecting with anybody. I want family. I don't have a family. I'm not making moves towards that. Like you got whatever you actually say, you got to reflect on what are actually true to you right now.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because Natalie, you can probably attest to this when we go through this with groups of people, and it's almost like people feel like they have to have family as one of their values. And when you give them permission to say that doesn't have to be your core value, one of your values, then it's almost like this, because they feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't put that, I'm going to be judged as a horrible person because, my family's not my value. But it doesn't have to be. But I think you're right. I think we're programmed and we believe that there's certain values that we should have, even though they're not in alignment with who we are. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yep, that's so true.
Yeah.
That is like just my example that I always share, because the first opportunity that I had to explore my values, I just went through the exercise thinking family is my value. And it's Pam talks about it. It's like obligatory, right? Like, of course, family is my value. Who am I as a mother if family is not my core value or one of my foundational values that I think about it? The other thing that it does when you have those obligatory values is that you kind of rob yourself of going through the experience, right? Like dig deeper, like truly what is it that you value and what is it that the person that you're going to be? What are the values that they hold true versus like just surface level? And no offense, family very well may be your one of your foundational values. It very well could be. But like Rob said, if you're not showing up for family dinner or you're missing the kids' meals or you don't even have a family yet, more than likely might not be your value. Or if it is, you're not living in alignment with it, right? So that's the other piece that you get to check in to say, I'm not upholding this or honoring this.
Yeah. So for anyone listening to this episode and you think that your value is family, just think about it. Is it really? And we're giving you permission to say it's not. And that's okay.
I know. I always have to tell people, and it's okay if it is.
If it is, great. And you know what? I will say that family was probably my core value when I was younger. When my kids were littler and they were my priority at that time. And I set boundaries for work around my kids. But now my kids are older and family's still important to me, but it's not one of my core values. Yeah. So, so I think they change, and you got to be okay letting some of those go that you think you have to have.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks perfectly back to what we were saying earlier about the different seasons.
Yeah.
And if you don't give yourself permission to even just reflect a little bit on different things, you can just go through different seasons, and next thing you know, it'll be like fall, even though you thought you were still in spring. And like, if you don't have some kind of system or routine to kind of check in and reflect on some of these things, that's where that misalignment starts to happen and the friction starts to heat up behind the scenes. And then we wake up down the road and we're like, oh, wait a second, this is what I thought it was, but this doesn't necessarily seem true.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.